Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to yet another interview with Indian Boxer Ring. My guest today is Jowhar Karim. Jowhar Karim is actually from Arizona, United States, and operates under the kennel prefix Mirak Boxes. And Jowhar, welcome to Indian Boxer Ring. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good. How are you?
Very good, excellent, Jowhar. I know there's a lot to talk about, but again, as I do with every interview, I want to get us started with the same question, essentially. How did you get into dogs and into boxes?
Well, growing up, I always loved animals. So it started with fish, birds, small mammals, and things like that. And it wasn't until my early 20s that I got the first boxer. So that was in 2001. And I've always wanted a dog. And so I was trying to think of what would be the best breed to get something that was athletic, but not too big, not too small, not too much hair, low maintenance. So I thought that was a boxer until I realized that wasn't the case. But I was already hooked and I just love the breed since then.
Right. Now, I know that when you get a boxer, typically people don't get pursue this as as a serious passion. They probably have it as a pet. But what prompted you to actually get into more serious aspect of keeping dogs into breeding boxers?
At the beginning, that dog was just a pet, but I was always fascinated with genetics. And so I always had an interest in genetics and how breeding different animals produce different combinations. So it wasn't long before I decided I want to breed boxers and maybe I can find another one to breed with my female, and this would be great. Little did I know there was a difference between a pet quality and a show quality. So I realized I had a pet quality female. So now how do I get the show quality female, or how can I breed to a show quality male to get these puppies? And that's where the road began to start to look for different dogs and improve the quality of what I had. And that's where it all began, knowing that there was a difference between show and pet.
Right. Now, did you actually venture into dog shows at this point, or was this you just looking at pictures and doing your research and finding out that your boxer was not show quality?
Right. So I would attend some of the local shows in Arizona and I would see the difference in the dogs, and the structure was so much different than what I had, especially the head type. And they were more muscle and just a more harmony between the body, the balance of the movement and structure and things like that. So I realized I did not have anything close to what they had in the show ring. So I started to look at kennels that I could speak with and maybe get a dog from them.
Mm. Very good. Now, I know this is where the journey gets interesting, right? I
Right.
know you actually kind of get to visit a lot of kennels, or you might actually say, hey, you know what, this is the kennel I'm going to go with. Now, did you actually do visit a lot of boxer kennels at this time as a part of your learning curve?
A lot of it was done online, I think, and I think that's when the Boxer Review magazine was really big. And
Mm.
so I subscribed to the Boxer magazine, the Boxer Review, and also the Boxer Quarterly in England. And
Mhm.
there were also some publications in Europe. So I would collect these magazines and I would look at the different dogs, like, oh, I like this type of dog, or this dog looks really impressive. And
Mm.
that's what opened up the world. So there's more than just the American boxer. Now there's boxers in Italy and England, and they look so much different. And I think
Mm.
it was the fact that in the photos they show more presence, more
Mhm.
power. I think just the way that they handle the dogs in the ring compared to the U.S.
Mhm.
that attracted me even more because this dog had a lot of presence and personality that came through in the images.
Right. Now, I know you mentioned in the passing about um, your interest in construction. The dogs were constructed. The virtues of the dog. You broke down portions of the dog in your response. In terms of the head looked a particular way, or the body looked a particular way. I know that everybody goes through the journey and gets a mental blueprint, right? The mental blueprint on what they want in their ideal boxer, reading the standard. What is your mental blueprint of an ideal boxer?
That's changed over the years because I think the longer you're in it, the more dogs you have, it changes how you see the dogs and how you see the structure. You understand more the longer you're in it, or I think you should if you're, you know, always want to learn more and study and look at anatomy and how the body moves and things like that. So it changed from time to time. So I would say now there's two blueprints. So I have a blueprint of the structure of the dog, then I have a blueprint for the temperament. Because temperament you can't see in a photo. You can have this beautiful dog in a picture, but then it might be skittish or it might be aggressive and really timid. So I think there's a blueprint for the temperament as well as for the structure.
Mm-hmm. Very good. No, it's actually I love the direction you're going here because I've heard so far the beauty aspect of or of the form aspect of the construction. But again, I would love to hear more about what your thoughts are or what your blueprint looks like for temperament as well. So if you would expand on that, please.
I think it varies just as much as structure and styles of dogs. You may have some bloodlines that are more prey driven. They're really active and hyper and they love to chase things and they're really into people. And you have others that are more independent or they may have they're more reserved or more serious. And so they may look more stoic in the way they move and act. And that might be a dog who has more of a defense in them, less than the prey drive. So they're not as hyper and bouncy. They're more stoic and they're serious all the time. So there's going to be a difference in the bloodlines as well as the types of dogs that you have. And it's trying to find that balance of dog that's not too hyper and one that's not too serious, just the right balance.
Right. I'm going to get into more about the temperament aspect of things, because I do have a few questions in mind based on what you said. But let's actually start off with what distinguishes the boxer. The unique feature of the boxer being the head. Do you think a boxer is a head breed?
I don't think so. I really don't. I thought about that, and when you look at all the pure breeds, if you see the silhouette of a poodle, you know it's a poodle. If you see the silhouette of a bulldog, you know it's a bulldog. So I think they all you can identify them by their head types. So I don't see the boxer being any different than any other purebred dog. And you want to focus on the entire dog, the head and the body, not just the head.
Okay, very good. Now I know that every kennel has a name, has a reason behind why they have a kennel name, the way that it's named. And again, I maybe I'll start off your journey as a breeder with your kennel name, Mirak, M-I-R-A-K, Mirak boxes. Is there a backstory? Is there a backstory to this name?
Oh, that's really simple. It's just my last name spelled backwards.
Okay, all right. Very good. Excellent. Now, I know that you mentioned that you ventured out and you actually looked at you subscribed to the UK quarterly or UK Boxer magazine. You looked at Boxer Review magazines. You looked at internet to actually kind of do your study to learn about the breed. Now, did you actually have any? Did you have any mentors that actually, course corrected or channelized the way that you approach the breed, your optics of the breed?
The very first mentor I had was Reuben Smith, and this was probably in the early 90s. This was right when I was looking for a show prospect. I met with them and they gave me a lot of information on boxers and things like that. And as time progressed, I met up with a breeder from Wales, a Linda box of Boxkin boxers, and that's where I got my first import was from Linda, and that's what started off, I guess, the journey with the different types of dogs. Right. There were a few dogs I had in the U.S., but it just never worked out for some reason. It was either maybe it wasn't the best quality dog, or there were some health issues, and we just couldn't continue with the dogs. But there seemed to always be something there was some barrier where we couldn't move forward. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go abroad and import. And that's where we went to Russia and we got a dog from Russia. Then we got the dog from England around the same time. And those were the two foundation females in the early 2000s.
Right. Now, I know, we're getting into the territory of continental boxes, European style boxes. Now, what triggered your interest in them? What was so striking? Something which said, "Hey, this is the direction I'm going to go." What actually made you take that plunge in that direction?
It was purely the appearance. It's
Mm,
just that they were striking in the photos and they looked larger than life. So you can
mhm,
see more muscle, more bone. It was just more of everything. So I didn't know there was a difference of being too much. So some were way
mm,
overdone. But in that
mhm,
time, I didn't know what was the difference. I just liked the look. And I
mhm.
liked how big they were and how strong they looked, and the muscles were bigger and the bones were bigger. So like that's what I want.
Right, right, right. Okay, I'll get it. I get it. Now, I want to actually I want to get into the aspect of temperament as well. You know, you mentioned about the blueprint, mental blueprint um, of a boxer in terms of temperament as well. So I know what is the typical temperament for those that actually are not exposed to European boxers. What is the temperament of a European boxer?
Mm. I think it's a lot like there's two sides. So you have show side of the European boxers and you have the working lines of European boxers. So it's kind of like the American boxer. Typically, the show dogs will be more manageable because you don't want them to be too chaotic in the
Mm,
ring. So there'll be a lower drive. They won't be as excitable. Um, they'll be more focused on the handler and less independent. So you'll see that difference either if it's European or American. You'll see the
mm,
difference between the show lines and the working lines. So the working lines will be some of the puppies are typically they're rambunctious. I mean, they
mm,
have a lot of spirit. And so you get accustomed to these really high energy dogs that they really don't crumble under pressure. That's what you want. You don't want a puppy who can crumble under pressure. We
mm,
don't want who's going to try to fight with you either. So it's this balance. It's a thin
mm,
line of having all this energy, but then containing it as well.
mm.
So to describe the working lines, they're going to be very extroverted, curious. Uh, they recover fast from many types of distractions or environmental changes. So that's what you're looking for in that working type of personality, that temperament.
Right, right, right. And I know that you have you actually have managed to blend the American style boxes with the European style box as well. You know, also have had some dogs from South or Central America that you have brought into your breeding program as well. We will get into that in just a moment. But again, the question that comes to my mind, Johar, is um, from in terms of, yes, you are a trainer, and we're going to talk about that as well in a moment, but you are a trainer and you're working with the working lines is actually the right thing for you to do. But as a breeder, does this actually make it a little bit more difficult for you to find proper homes for your dogs? Because a boxer with that temperament might actually not be might be very different from a show dog, which is a little bit more, the temperament is a little bit more lower. It might not have so much of a prey drive. What are your thoughts about that?
That's something that we struggle with. I would say maybe the past 10 years or so, we really struggled with the idea of should we tailor our breeding program to be suitable for everyone to own one of our boxers? And I said, no, we should stick with the blueprint we have in mind for temperament and structure. And if that home is suitable for that puppy, then it's a great match. If it's not the right match. And I'll recommend them to find someone who has the personality and temperament that's more suitable for them. So we
Mhm.
want to stay with the temperaments that we're used to and that are easy to manage as far as the working dogs, and just continue on that route. Because it's not
Right.
always the best match if that person doesn't match the same energy as the dog. So they should be
Mhm.
an active family, go many places. There are a lot of our puppies that go to homes. I said 90% are all going to pet homes. But these are
Mhm.
really active people who go out and they socialize the dogs enough so they learn how to manage that energy. They have an
Right.
outlet for it.
Right. No, no, very true. Very true. Now, no, no, thank you. No, that makes a lot of sense, because I have heard that there's a lot of dogs that end up in the pound because of behavior. And again, temperament is one of the reasons for that, because it becomes difficult to manage. And that my question was based on that topic, but I think you answered that question well. Thank you. It is matching the owner with the dog, the personality, and that makes for a good home. Now, I know I'm actually kind of, before I get into the breeding aspect of things, I want to actually look at your optics. I want to get your optics on what you see to be the virtues in the American style boxes and the European style boxes?
Currently, I would say that my attraction to the American style is the movement. I think they have more balanced movement. The bodies are more balanced front to rear. There's certain aspects of top lines and croups and things like that that are better than what I see in a lot of the European dogs. And I think the heads are getting pretty good with American dogs. They have large nostrils, with what we need for the working dog, where you see there's a trend of working dogs with more smaller heads, short muzzles, pinched nares, and that's not going to be suitable for the work. As well as living in the desert, we have really high temperatures, and if our dogs don't have large nostrils, they cannot breathe. And it's difficult to work with them if they can't breathe. So I like to balance the harmony and balance of the American dog with the temperament of the working dog.
Right, right. Very true, very true. Now, I know that, yeah, what you mentioned there in terms of stenotic nares and also in terms of thermal regulation because of, the pinched nostrils. Yeah, that actually definitely are things that affects the lifestyle of the boxer and also the age as well. Now, could you talk more? Could you actually give us a little bit more optics about the thermal regulation? What are some of the disadvantages of the stenotic nares that that your research has come that has actually helped you identify or find out?
A lot of it comes from just the performance of the dog, and you can quickly see if their structure and their makeup is going to be suitable for where we live in the desert. We have imported dogs before from other countries where they have a really short nose, pinched nares, and they have a hard time breathing. And those dogs typically have to go to a colder part of the country and be placed in homes there because we just can't work them here. It's just too hot. So we're looking for a dog that's not too heavy. They have the correct nose length to head, large nostrils, and they have this. I look at movement a lot when the dogs are playing together, and I can usually pick out puppies to see how they're maintaining the heat as well as their endurance. So is the structure going to be an advantage or disadvantage? So if they have to use a lot of energy to move, it's not going to be worth trying to force this dog to do behaviors that's going to be detrimental to its health. So that rules out a lot of the dogs as well if they're not built for the climate and for the work.
Right, right. No, fair enough. I know I've heard this phrase that a boxer can do anything you put it to work. It's a jack of all trades, but the master of none. How does a boxer, how do you find a boxer in terms of the type of training that you do? And again, we're going to get more into that detail. I know your interest lies in protection work, and also training tailored to the personality of the dog. But how does a boxer rank in terms of the different dogs that you use for protection work?
That's an interesting question because each one is so different. I think that once you understand the dog that's in front of you, they tell you what they're inclined to do. So usually if I have a puppy that's uses nose all the time, I might be more geared to tracking with the puppy because it's already naturally inclined to use its nose and track. So I would force it to do agility or something that it doesn't want to do. So if it loves to use its nose, let's just go for tracking. Or if it's a dog that's more defensive, it might do great in protection because it naturally feeds off of that energy and it loves the fight between you and the dog. So it's less work on your part. I think if you listen to the dog, they're going to tell you what they're inclined to do and go on that route. It's much easier.
Right, right. No, absolutely. No, for sure. Now, in terms of, I want to combine the two aspects that you mentioned. One is actually the form, and the one is the temperament, the two blueprints. So when you actually combine, when you're breeding, let's say, two animals together, should they actually be off? Have you found that temperament carries over to the puppies? How much of it is nature and how much of it is nurture?
That's a good question. I think about that sometimes when I find a puppy in the litter that it looks really nice. And I know deep down that it doesn't have the temperament that it probably needs for the work, but I'm like, well, I can make this work. If I just
Mm.
train the dog early enough, I can make it succeed. And I think that's a fallacy because I think what nature does is it gives you that limit that it can reach. Like this is your potential, and this is as far as it can go. That's the ceiling. So nature
Mm.
does that. Nurture brings them up to that ceiling. So I want to breed a dog where this standard is even higher as far as what genetic gives it, and then the training brings it up to that potential. So it's
Mm.
a balance between the two.
Right, right, right. Now I know that you concentrate more into the the performance side of the dog, the working aspect of the dog. But what about the what about the show aspect of things? What do you like about what do you like about the confirmation aspect of showing boxes?
I think you need both in order to have the perfect package. You need both the structure and the temperament. And there's only so many hours in a day. So if you're focused on showing, you need to dedicate all of your time to showing. If you're focused on temperament, you need to dedicate all your time on temperament. So we need to
Mm,
collaborate and work together.
mm,
And
mm,
so I know our weaknesses and the faults in the dogs. And so I'm always searching for that dog that can bring those virtues that we're missing without losing temperament, which is very difficult because it's so difficult to keep the temperament that you have. You don't want to lose it. Once you have the right balance, you don't want to start to go down and get fearful dogs or dogs that are fear aggression and things like that. So I might find really beautiful dogs that I'm
mm,
attracted to as far as the
mm,
structure, but then I see them in person, I'm like, there's just that spark is gone. There's no spirit. There's nothing there that says, look at me. I'm
mm,
commanding this space. This is mine. And
mm.
that's what I look for. And
Right.
on rare occasions, you do find that in the show ring. Yeah.
Mm. Right, 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 right. True, very true. Now I know you also mentioned that there's a thin line between being confident and being aggressive, right? I know you didn't say that, but that's a derivation in my head.
Right.
Uh, how do you draw the line? Especially somebody who looks at temperament as closely as you do. How do you Can you give us an analogy on how we would differentiate being confident and guarding the space versus a dog that is aggressive.
A lot of that is determined by the owner, I think, um, because when we're raising puppies, we want them to be confident, but also understand this is a team. I'm the
Mm,
captain and we're on the same team. If, as a captain, you don't understand how to create these boundaries and rules and regulations, then the teammate just gets out of control. Like they
mm,
just they just go rogue and do their own thing. So a lot of it is dependent on the owner. And do you have the personality for that much dog with that much temperament? If you don't, that's just too much dog for you. So then the dogs get out of control and they're aggressive.
mm,
But if you have the right understanding of how to raise a dog and put in the foundation to have that um, rules and regulations in place, then you don't have those issues. And it all starts from puppies. It starts from
mm,
how you arrange their daily schedule. Do you give them free playtime and with all the toys they could possibly want? Do they eat whenever they want? Do they go and play whenever they want to? Do they decide what they do from time to time? So a lot of that is how you structure the training as well, especially when you're
right.
working with dogs with that much temperament.
Mm, very true. Very true. Uh, Now I know. I actually. You mentioned early 2000s. So that's almost you've been in the breed. You bred many. You imported dogs. You bred many litters. What are your thoughts about inbreeding, line breeding, and outcrossing? How what would is there a formula to establishing your own style of boxes, which is closer to your blueprint? Is there a scientific formula? Because I know your background is in academics, is biochemistry as well. So is there a magic formula to how you approach the breeding principles?
In the beginning, I was like a mad scientist. I just
Mm,
like this, like that, and I grab them, I put them together, and I see what's going to happen. And it was always successful. I think there's
mm,
times where you put the male and female together and you get this litter, and that maybe 2 weeks old, they all look the same. And you think you were successful. Like I have a really consistent litter. And as they grow, you start to see these differences. And at 8 weeks, they might look great. And then maybe 12 weeks, these look different than these. And why do these act different than these? And by 6 months, none of them look like the way you thought they would. So you thought you could blend two different, like apple and orange, you get something in the middle, you get apples, oranges, and something in the middle. I think it depends on understanding the bloodlines and how they reproduce with certain styles of dogs. So the more you can breed the male to different styles, you can see what trends he's starting to produce. It's okay. This dog does great with elegant females because he doesn't give too much. He just complements what they already have. But if I place him with the dog that's just like his type, I get too much. I get these gigantic barrel chests, these really short loins, but then the rear is underdeveloped and the front is overdeveloped, and they're moving in a weird way. So understanding the lines and how you can mix them together is trial and error. There's no formula on which ones to put together. But the more you see your dogs produce, then you can start to have the trends and know where to go.
Very true, very true. Well, thank you for that. I know you have a UK connection. I'm talking about a boxer that is actually standing at stud, a dog bred by you called Poseidon or Marco. Can you tell us about the UK connection? How your dog is standing at stud in one of the famous kennels in the UK?
Well, I think that was a miracle. I honestly don't know how it happened. We have been in communication over the years. I have been to Crufts, I think 2 or 3 times, and just in passing in some of the dinners that they would have after the shows, we would chat and things like that. And I think it was over Facebook. We communicated back and forth, and I told them how much I liked their dogs, and I had bred this litter. I think there was 10 puppies, and there was one I picked out for myself because it was a perfect blend of these 2 dogs. And it was like a female we had used an American dog on, and then we had one of our imports, and we put those 2 together. And he was very nice. And so I had him stacked in the photo, and Julie said, "Oh, that's a beautiful puppy. I want him." I was like, "Okay, you can have him if you want him." And it was as quick as that. He was theirs. So I was happy that they decided to take him. And it was really, I think that was like the highlight of my breeding career so far.
The kennel is Winterwood Boxes in the UK. Right. Very good. Very good. Thank you. I just want to get into detail about health testing as well. Because you are you're blending lines from different styles. What are some of the, before we get into the health testing aspect of things, what are some of the plus that you feel you have managed to integrate or bring into through your breeding program by blending these different styles?
Well, I can tell you that there's no difference in the health, no matter where they're coming from. We all face the same issues with health, with the hearts and the hips and things like that. And I haven't noticed a difference between any of the dogs we've bred here or imported as far as the health. Longevity might be different. There's some lines that do have more longevity. So they're getting dogs that are 13, 14 years old. And you'll see that reproduce in their offspring. There's certain lines that do produce longevity. So I think there's a big difference between the health and longevity. They don't always go together. You can have dogs that have, moderate health results, still within the standard, and they have a longer lifespan. And they have those with perfect health, and they have a shorter lifespan. So it's trying to balance the health and the longevity together. So I'm not looking for perfect scores across the board because that doesn't equal longevity.
Right. I agree. But again, what would be some of the recommended testing you would say would you would consider to be important in the breed?
I would say the Holter monitor, the echo on the heart, DM testing, testing the hips, elbows. We really don't do spines much, but that's also one you can do as far as like for the working dogs. But I think heart, hips, DM, and the ARVC 1 and 2, I would still do that. Just have a record of what you are producing and keep record of that.
Right, true, right, true. I want to actually get into. I know you mentioned about longevity, and I want to actually talk about also about some dogs that I've seen in pictures, and I hope they're not painted. Um, but they have excellent pigmentation. They have pigmentation. They are like 7, 8 years old. They're like, they have like great, excellent pigmentation. Do you think this has got to do with you know this has got to do with the gut health, or do you think it's basically the lines that bring that pigmentation, or both?
I think it's the health. I think it's the diet that you're feeding the dogs, and it's also their environment. Um, like any stress is going to make them age faster, and I think a good healthy diet is also going to be really good for their longevity and just their appearance. They look younger longer. At least my experience with that, since we feed the raw diet, we notice a difference. Even in like training our dogs, they learn pretty fast, and I think a lot of that is due to the health too. Like they have clear mental
Mhm.
capacities, and so I think it's all related to the health in the food.